Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman, Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Radha Gokulananda, Radha Gokulananda Radhe. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Haribol, 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 Gaura Haribol.
Bhaktivedanta
Nitai Gaura Haribol, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol. Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Haribo. Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki. Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda ki. Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki. Srila Prabhupada ki. Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Haribo.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Haribo. Happy Ram Navami. Thank you for that ecstatic kirtan, as always. I'd like to welcome Her Grace Vishaka Prabhu up to say some words of welcome. So please, can we put our arms up high towards the ceiling and give a big, loud Haribol.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvasesa Sunyavadi Paskyata Deshatarane Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanshakopatarubyascha, kripa sindhu bhyevacha, patitanam pavanebhyo, vaishnavebhyo. Hare Krishna. Welcome, one and all, to Ram Navami at Bhaktivedanta Manor 2023. Thank you so much for coming and joining us. These past 5 days or so in class, we've been hearing about the leadership qualities of Lord Ram, of which there are many, and it's so inspiring to hear them, so uplifting, something that we can try to emulate these qualities in our own lives, seeing his example. This morning I was thinking how just on the cusp of his being coronated to be the emperor in Ayodhya, he was banished for 14 years. And he accepted that. When you think about it, it's truly extraordinary. He was going to enjoy not only power and opulence, but all sorts of royal comforts. And because of his strong sense of duty to his father, he gave it all up and instead lived in the forest, eating roots and berries. As such a contrast today throughout the major countries of the world, we find leaders hanging on to their power, not wanting to give it up. So we can take inspiration from Lord Ram for his sense of renunciation and his sense of duty. So thank you again for coming. We have a wonderful program this morning. And then Harinam in Watford, please join us. Hare Krishna. All glories to Lord Ram.
We'll now have the ladies' ashram leading us through a Lord Ram bhajan. So please do join in. It's so nice to see some of our Bhaktivedanta Manor family all joined together. So yeah, ladies' ashram, take it away.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Sita Rama, Rama Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Sita Rama. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Sita Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Sita Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Rama. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Sita Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Sita Rama, Rama Rama. Ram Ram Sita Ram, Ram Ram Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Ram Ram Sita Ram. Ram Ram Sita Ram, Ram Ram Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Ram Ram Sita Ram. Ram Ram Sita Ram, Ram Ram Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Ram Ram Sita Ram. Ram Sitaram, Ram Ram Sitaram, Sitaram Sitaram, Ram Ram Sitaram. Ram Ram Sitaram, Ram Ram Sitaram, Sitaram Sitaram, Ram Ram Sitaram. Ram Ram Sitaram, Ram Ram Sitaram, Sitaram Sitaram, Ram Ram Sitaram. Ram Ram Sitaram, Ram Ram Sitaram, Sitaram Sitaram, Ram Ram Sitaram. Ram Ram Sitaram, Ram Ram Sitaram, Sitaram Sitaram, Ram Ram Sitaram. Ram Ram Sitaram, Ram Ram Sitaram, Sitaram Sitaram, Ram Ram Sitaram. Ram Ram Sitaram, Ram Ram Sitaram, Sitaram Sitaram, Ram Ram Sitaram. Ram Ram Sitaram, Ram Ram Sitaram, Sitaram Sitaram, Ram Ram Sitaram. Ram Ram Sitaram, Ram Ram Sitaram, Sitaram Sitaram, Ram Ram Sitaram. Raghupati Raghava Raja Ram, Patita Pavana Sitaram. Raghupati Raghava Raja Ram, Patita Pavana Sitaram. Sitaram Jaya Sitaram, Patita Pavana Sitaram. Sitaram Jaya Sitaram, Patita Pavana Sitaram. Raghupati Raghava Raja Ram, Patita Pavana Sitaram. Raghupati Raghava Raja Ram, Patita Pavana Sitaram. Raghupati Raghava Ram Ram Sitaram Ram Ram Sitaram 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 Ram Ram Sitaram Ram Ram Sitaram Ram Ram Sitaram 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 Ram Ram Sitaram Ram Ram Sitaram Ram Ram Sitaram 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 Ram Ram Sitaram Sitaram Ram Ram Sitaram 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 Ram Ram Sitaram Ram Ram Sitaram Ram Ram Sitaram 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 Ram Ram Sitaram Ram Ram Sitaram Ram Ram Sitaram 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 Ram Ram Sitaram Raghupati Raghava Raja Ram Patita Pavana Sitaram Raghupati Raghava Raja Ram Patita Pavana Sitaram Raghupati Raghava Raja Ram Patita Pavana Sitaram Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Patita Pavana Sitaram Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Patita Pavana Sitaram Hare Rama 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 Sita Rama 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 Hare Rama 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 Sita Rama Hare Rama 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 Sita Rama 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 Sita Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Ram, Sita Rama, Rama Ram. Ram Ram Sita Ram, Ram Ram Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Ram Ram Sita Ram. Ram Ram Sita Ram, Ram Ram Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Ram Ram Sita Ram. Shri Ramanavami Mahamahotsava ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Gaura Pramanande.
Yeah, we can give a round of applause. Thank you so much, ladies ashram team, Ki Jai. We now have the junior Bhaktivedanta players who are going to be performing the birth of Lord Ram. I'm personally excited to see what kind of hairstyles and beards we're going to have today. So please, with rapt attention, let's all put our arms up in the air and again welcome our junior budding actors and actresses with a big Haribo.
Hare Krishna. Did you all enjoy that? I think you can do a little bit better. Give them a big hand, everyone. Come on. It's not an easy thing to be on stage in front of all these wonderful Vaishnavas. I think they did very, very nice. So these are the wonderful actors. So what's your name?
Govinda,
Your name?
Vinda, Madhav, Doya, Rasikarani, Chaitanya Leela, Lakshmi, Kishori,
Pretty sure it's Vashishta, but never mind.
Keshavi, Vishnu, Janaki.
Please kindly give your hand to the wonderful actors. Very bold. If you didn't know the pastime of Lord's appearance, well, these children performed a wonderful pastime. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Can we also give a round of applause to Jai Krishna Prabhu? Jai Krishna Prabhu has been serving in this capacity now for many decades. And despite different things, different health issues, different things that happen in his life, he's always showing up, and it takes so much effort and organization to put these dramas together. So I'm really, really grateful, and I know we all are to Jai Krishna Prabhu. We'd now like to welcome His Grace Kripamoya Prabhu to come and give us a special talk on Lord Ram. So I'm thinking, should we do a round of applause or a Haribol? I'm not sure. We can do both. We can do both. Haribol. Haribol.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. What a wonderful play. We have to thank Jai Krishna Prabhu for all these years putting plays on, so that we could watch a beautiful drama at, 9 o'clock in the morning, before breakfast. And they were children too. That's amazing. Do we have the Bhagavatam verse? Yeah, okay, we'll go straight into it. What is the time now? Quarter? Oh, I see, okay. Very good. Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Can you see the verse? Is it there? Okay. This is from the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Ya Satya Pasha Parivitta Pitur Nidesham. Ya Satya Pasha Parivitta Pitur Nidesham. Srainasya chapi shirasa jagrihe. Excuse me. Sabaraya. One of the joys of reading from a Kindle. Where does it end? Sabarya? Yeah. Strainasya chapi shirase jagrihe sabharya Rajang Shriyang Pranayina Surido Nivasam Rajang Shriyam Pranayina Surido Nivasam Tyaktva Yayo Vanam Asun Eva Mukta Sangaha Tyaktva Yayo Vanam Asun Eva Mukta Sangha Ya Satyapasha Parivita Pitur Nidesham Strainasya chapi shirasa jagrihe sabharya Rajang Shriyam Pranayina Surido Nivasam Tyaktva Yayo Vanamasun Ivamukta Sangha Yasatyapasha Parivita Pitur Nidesham Strainasya chapi shirasa jagrihe sabharya Rajang Shriyam Pranayina Surido Nivasam Tyaktva Yayo Vanamasun Ivamukta Sangha Anybody brave? Ladies. Ya Lord Ramachandra who? Satyapasha Parivritta Pitu of his father who was bound by the promise to his wife. Nidesham, the order. Strainasya, of the father who was very much attached to his wife. Cha, also. Api, indeed. Shirasa, on his head. Jagrihe, accepted. Sabharya, with his wife. Rajam, the kingdom. Shriyam, opulence. Pranayina, relatives. Surida, friends. Nivasam, residence. Tyaktva, giving up. Yayo, went. Vanam, to the forest. Asun, life. Eva, like. Mukta Sangha, a liberated soul. Translation. Carrying out the order of his father, who was bound by a promise to his wife, Lord Ramachandra left behind his kingdom, opulence, friends, well-wishers, residence, and everything else, just as a liberated soul gives up his life and went to the forest with Sita. Please repeat. carrying out the order of his father, who was bound by a promise to his wife. Lord Ramachandra left behind his kingdom, opulence, friends, well-wishers, residents, and everything else, just as a liberated soul gives up his life and went to the forest with Sita. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj Dasharath had 3 wives. One of them, Kaikeyi, served him very pleasingly, and he therefore wanted to give her a benediction. Kaikeyi, however, said that she would ask for the benediction when it was necessary. At the time of the coronation of Prince Ramachandra, Kaikeyi requested her husband to enthrone her son, Bharata, and send Ramachandra to the forest. Maharaj Dasharath, being bound by his promise, ordered Ramachandra to go to the forest according to the dictation of his beloved. And the Lord, as an obedient son, accepted the order immediately. He left everything without hesitation, just as a liberated soul or great yogi gives up his life without material attraction. Oma jnana timirandasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshura militam jena tasmai shri gurave namah. What a wonderful day, Ram Navami. One of my favorite days of the year. I must thank again the players for the beautiful play that brings the life of Lord Ramachandra, or one chapter in that life, to life for all of us. I was lucky enough to be sitting this close to Srila Prabhupada in 1977 when he was watching a drama of the Ramayana in Mayapur. And I thought, because to me Prabhupada was the general who marshals his troops and sends them out to preach and gives us rules and regulations to follow. I was looking at the play and then looking to Srila Prabhupada for any faults that he might find. I was looking this way, this way. And at one point, the gentleman who was playing Ravana, he picked up Sita and he put her over his shoulder. And I thought, oh, this is it, Prabhupada's going to be so unhappy. You know, how is it that men and women, they have to stay apart at least 20 paces? Prabhupada's not going to like this at all. And I looked back to Prabhupada like this, and Prabhupada was like this. His mouth was... He thought it was very funny. And I learned then that don't try to second-guess the Guru. At the beginning, I wanted to also thank His Holiness Krishnadas Swami, who passed on quite some years ago, but whose efforts here at Bhaktivedanta Manor not only raised the idea that we should worship Lord Ramachandra in this temple, but that he helped to raise the funds, and he also went to India to make arrangements for Lord Ramachandra to come here. So this all happened in 1980. I was away in Africa at the time, but he was installed, and by the time I came back from Africa, beautiful Lord Ramachandra deities. To my knowledge, Prabhupada installed Sitaram in only a few places. Put your hands up if you know which places Prabhupada actually installed Sitaram. Yes, Bombay? Is it? Baltimore, USA? Nairobi, no. I was there at the time. Delhi? Not sure, that came afterwards. And Washington. It was Washington. The Potomac Temple, yes, Washington. Prabhupada used to install deities that would send a message to the local people as well. In the heart of the USA, where the president makes all decisions? Should there not be a deity of the president of the universe, Lord Ramachandra? Yes. And in Bombay, where most of the decisions of India are made, apart from the Lok Sabha in Delhi, should there not be Lord Ramachandra? And here, of course, at Bhaktivedanta Manor, where many important decisions are made for the future of Krishna consciousness all over the country, should we not worship Lord Ram? But sometimes, because we're the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, our eyes may gaze lovingly at Sri Sri Radha Gokulananda and fleetingly at Lord Ramachandra. But on days like today, we should make our prayers to Lord Ramachandra and fully drench our eyes in his darshan. Well, I looked at what Srila Prabhupada said on this day in 1969 in Hawaii. And it's very interesting, Prabhupada. It's one of the first classes, I suppose, where he's telling the story of Lord Ramachandra. But he wants to also focus us on this Vairagya aspect of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This always confused me when I was a young devotee. I was very confused, because I thought, God is all great, yes. Krishna is all wealthy, yes. He possesses everything naturally. He's all powerful, he's all wise. He is, what else? He's all beautiful. But all renounced. He's all famous, but all renounced. What does this mean? How can God renounce everything? Even if he renounces it, it still belongs to him. And yet, sometimes it is translated as dispassion, or that this too is a renunciation, is a quality which is an opulence. Prabhupada said that it is an opulence that people do not see in the world. And when they come to our temples and they see that devotees have given up so much, that is very attractive to people. Because it's a living demonstration that if you give up this and this and this, you must have something greater. Because anandamayo bhyasat, where our tendency is to enjoy. So therefore, when we give up lower things, there must be something higher that we are enjoying. So also in the personality of Godhead, when he comes, he just displays this renunciation. And it's appropriate to what the incarnation is going to demonstrate, which in the case of Lord Ramachandra is Maryad. Krishna is known as Leela Purushottam, of beautiful Leelas. And Lord Ramachandra is known as Maryad Purushottam, who establishes the boundary. Just like here I am on stage, there's a boundary between these flowers over here and these flowers over there. There's a boundary between this part of the stage and that part of the stage. There's a boundary going down the middle here for some purpose. There's a boundary between the... boundaries mean, if we observe those boundaries, then we can have good social interaction. A society where there's no boundaries means chaos. Now, whether you draw those boundaries according to democracy, which sees the boundaries ever-changing, or whether you draw those boundaries according to Sanatana Dharma, which has them fixed according to time, place, and circumstance, that is your choice, of course. But Lord Sri Ramachandra comes to give Maryad, he comes to give the boundaries. So one reason why he's so loved is he gives great direction to children in life to know how to behave. And that is why Lord Ram is known all over India. Not just India also, but he's very famous in Eastern Africa. He's also famous in Thailand. Even today, the king of Thailand is known as King Ram. Just like we have our king, King Charles. There was a debate whether he was going to take the Charles name because the last Charles didn't do so well. We have Charles I, Charles II, and now Charles III. So there was a debate, but he opted on Charles. But in Thailand, the king is always King Ram. And in Cambodia, the biggest temple in the world was dedicated to Ram. Still the biggest temple in the world. and you'll see beautiful sculptures of Ram all over the temple. So why this popularity of Ram? Why so popular? Because he teaches how to behave in ordinary life. And this is why people turn to the Ramayana again and again and again. There was a popularization of the Ramayana in cinema, and in theater, in dance, in poetry, in television. Ramayana is cartoons. Ramayana is in book form, many different literary forms. Ramayana is so popular as a book. Even just a few years ago when Ramayana was on the television, when Ramanand Sagar did his series of Ramayana, even the most dependable thing in India, the train timetables, were no longer dependable because people would, the television would be playing, and if the end of the program was coming up, the crowds on the station would not get on the train, so they had to hold the train up. So it's so popular. And Lord Ramachandra is behaving as a human being. But it's so remarkable that these verses are said that he gave up everything. And how remarkable that someone at the peak of his youth should give up everything and go to the forest. So most of you know this story. It's a beautiful story. It takes 24,000 verses to tell the story of Ramayana. Valmiki's Ramayana is 24,000 verses long. Srimad Bhagavatam is 18,000 verses, 350 chapters, and 90 of those chapters are just Krishna's story. Lord Ram's story is 24,000. There's a lot of teaching involved in that. But in the Srimad Bhagavatam we find only 2 chapters or 91 verses. So Shukadeva Goswami is speaking rather briefly. Why could that be? I can only assume that it's because Maharaj Parikshit really, really knows this story. And time is being used for fully delineating the glories of Sri Krishna. So in 1969, Prabhupada gave a class on this day, and he quotes this verse, Aishvaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashashashya jnana vairagya yoshchaiva shanam bhagam itangana. And he focuses on this renunciation, the capacity of renunciation. And in this verse it says that he gave up everything, just as a liberated soul gives up the body. In the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we hear that a liberated soul leaves this world just like a flash of lightning. Flash of lightning. It's over. There I was, now I'm not. Just like that, the liberated soul leaves this world. The other aspect that Prabhupada talks about is that there are many incarnations of Krishna. An incarnation or an avatar. I had a discussion about this some nights ago in our online discussions. But the word incarnation is a clumsy English word to translate the word avatar. Avatar means that which comes down from a higher place to a lower place. Incarnation means that which comes into blood, incarna, into the blood, into the flesh. And of course, Krishna points out in the Bhagavad Gita that he and his avatars do not come into the flesh. We are incarnations. Each of you is an incarnation. Unfortunately, you're a reincarnation, a very sad incarnation. You had to be born. But Krishna says, Ajopi son of Yayatma Bhutanam Ishwaropi son. Don't make the mistake of thinking that because I look like a human, that I am like you. Rather, we like the idea that God is like us, but we are thinking that man has created God. Anthropomorphism. That we are two-handed, two-legged, one-headed. Therefore we have created a God with 2 hands, 2 legs and a head. That God is our creation. And if we want to believe in him because he's our creation, we can. But if we want to disbelieve in God, who is our creation, then we can choose not to. But the Vedic conception is that we are theomorphic. In other words, we're made in the image of God, just like it says in the Bible. So we are 2-handed, 2-legged, 1-headed, because God himself is that shape. And this is a 180-degree turnaround. At some point in our Krishna consciousness development, we take that turn. So Prabhupada is keen to point this out. He says that Krishna has many avatars, Ramadi Murti Shukalani Amena Tishtan, beginning with Ram. He says, just as there's so many waves that come onto the beach, that many incarnations, you cannot count the incarnations. He says, Lord Ram appeared in Treta Yuga. He says, Dwapara Yuga is 800,000 years. Treta Yuga is 1,200,000 years. So he says the date of Lord Ramachandra, 2 million years at least. And as we saw in the play, Ayodhya was the capital of Koshala. And it's interesting that Ayodhya has been very much in the news recently, as finally they're rebuilding the temple in Ram's birthplace, which is a jai-ho for anybody who follows Ram. It has been such a long time coming, but that temple is coming up now. Even today, the construction is going on. We should say something about why the king was so disturbed. I mean, I'm sure there's people here, sitting here, who have no children. Are you particularly disturbed because you have no son? Not really. Is it a lot of people don't have children. Why was it such a big deal for Dasharath? Because he was continuing not just his family, he wasn't selfish, he was the king. Kings have anxiety, queens have anxiety, if there's no children to carry on the dynasty. And if you hear of the dynasty of the Surya Vangsha, the Sun dynasty, you'll realize why it was important to carry on the dynasty. At the beginning, there was someone called Dilip. We have on our patrons committee, it was Dilip. Huh? Not here today, buddy. Anybody who's at home, welcome. But Dilip was the original Surya Vamsha king, and he tried to bring the Ganges to this world for the salvation of all. He failed. The Ganges was eventually brought by his son Bhagirath. So these are 2 names in the Surya Vangsha, which are honored. And it goes through many different persons. And finally we come to Katvanga. What happened to Maharaj Katvanga? Who can tell me what happened to Maharaj Katvanga? Became self-realized in a few seconds, that's right. He went to the heavenly planets, and they told him, sorry, because you're here in the heavenly planets, time is wibbly-wobbly in the heavenly planets. Everybody that you've known back on earth has disappeared. Your life is going to disappear very shortly. So in this short time remaining to you, become Krishna conscious. And Prabhupada would use the name of Maharaj Katvanga as an illustration that you can become Krishna conscious in 2 seconds, if you want. Or it may take many, many lifetimes. If you want. What do you want? What do you really want? Do you want Krishna consciousness? Or do you want Krishna consciousness and a little bit of this, and a little bit of that, and a little bit of the other? Do you want Krishna consciousness now? Huh? Or do you want it later? If you want Krishna consciousness right now, you may get it later. If you want Krishna consciousness later, you may get it next time round. It's just like if you aim for getting the gold medal in the Olympics, you may get silver. If you aim for silver, you definitely get bronze. And Prabhupada used this as an opportunity to tell us that the sense of urgency. So Ayodhya was the capital of Koshala, It is to the southeast of Delhi, 430 miles. It's still there today. You can go there. And in this dynasty, we finally come to someone called Dirghabahu. And finally, his son was Raghu. Raghu. And Raghu is very important because Raghu is the great hero of the Suryavamsa dynasty. And of course, every time we say Lord Ram's name, Raghupati, that's it, just stretch your... Raghupati, Raghunandan, what else? Raghavira, Raghupati, Raghuvanshapati, Raghuvanshanath. Any other Raghus? Raghava. And another one? That's right, Raghunath. So a lot of Raghus. So Lord Ram is glorified with the name of Raghu. Raghu's son is Aja. So Raghu was Lord Ramchandra's grandfather. You have Aja, who married Indumati, and then their son was Dasharath. Now, there is anxiety because you want to continue. Anything which is good, you want to continue. Just like in our ISKCON movement. Just tell me if I'm saying something wrong. Thank you. In our ISKCON movement, the GBC is an anxiety. They want it to be passed on to young people. We want to continue this movement on into the future. The head pujari of Bhaktivedanta Manor is an anxiety. Permanently, I think you find. Who will do the offerings? Who can we have? Who will replace me? Practically speaking, if you're a manager or a leader in the Krishna consciousness movement, or indeed in politics, and certainly in monarchy, the anxiety is always finding someone who will take over after you. And the search for a person to take over after you begins when you're young. I used to read this and I thought, this is one of the main things, one of the many things I suppose I thought was a little bit of an exaggeration, that Dasharath was really an anxiety. And the reason I thought was because how is it possible for a man with 3 wives not to have any children at all? I just thought this is maybe a little dramatic enhancement that's crept into the story. And my mind works in that way. And so this was put to bed when I was in Africa. And I met a man who was the only son of his father who had 64 daughters. As the lady at the back went, "Oh, that poor woman." No, he had many, many wives. He was the district commissioner of a particular part of Africa. I feel him with us now. So this man, he was the only son, and he had 63 sisters. 63 sisters, can you imagine? And the father was so desperate to get a son. I guess that he was desperate after the 20th daughter, don't you think? And then his son, I mean, it's straight out of the Bhagavatam. His son made a mistake one day. He was on the street when a Harinam party went by. And he said, "Father, I'm going to join the Hare Krishna movement." And the father said, "But you're my only son. Who will become the chief of the tribe?" He said, "Father, I have to." And of course, like a liberated soul, he just gave it up and shaved his head. The father was distraught. Anyway, when I met that boy, I thought, young British man that you are, you haven't seen anything, you haven't been anywhere. Here, now you're being shown these things can happen. So from that day, I've always been absolutely convinced that Dasarath had no children. It's funny, sometimes Krishna has to go, "Just look through that door, please. It'll be a faith booster for you." So this was the anxiety. The whole story of how Rishi Shringa came to Ayodhya is not told, but it's a wonderful story. I think I told it last time. But he was, anyway, he was lured. Anyway, these three ladies that Dasharath married, his wife was called Kaushalya because she was from a place called Dakshin Kaushala. Kaikeyi was the daughter of the kingdom of Kaikeya, and Sumitra came from the oldest city in the world, from Kashi, or Varanasi, or Benares. She came from there, which wasn't too far away. So Rishi Shringa was he was so potent that everywhere he walked, it would rain. We don't need him in England. Rishi Shringa, that's all right, stay where you are. But Rishi Shringa was particularly effective in bringing rain to a kingdom where there was no rain. But he hadn't seen any. Anyway, it's another story for another time. It's interesting that both Ramayana and Mahabharata hinge on a man's promise to a woman. In the Mahabharata, we find that Bhima promised Draupadi, "I will avenge you." It's the whole narrative of Mahabharata. The whole Kurukshetra war is basically Bhima living out his promise to avenge Draupadi's honor. Sometimes we think that it's this reason, that reason, but the whole crux is the honor of a woman was abused, and Bhima said, "I will avenge your honor, I will restore your honor." He said it quite colorfully. He said, "I'll rip his heart out," but that's another thing. So Dasharath, his promise to his wife also occurred at a time of intense tension, great battle. And she had, it's interesting that it's stated that Kaikeyi was not just a flake. Sometimes when we imagine Vedic, what we call a Vedic woman, we imagine a flake, don't we? Yes, my husband, no, my husband. How many chapatis would you like? Kaikeyi was a chariot driver. She was her husband's chariot driver. Imagine that. She was in the front of battle with the arrows whizzing past her, this side. She drove her husband when he got hit in the chest. She drove him to safety, and she restored him to health. And that's why he gave a boon. In any Krishna story, this word boon is very important. Sometimes I wish I had a boon. I wish that someone would come up to me and say, "I give you a boon." Before I joined the Hare Krishna movement, I didn't know what a boon was. I still haven't seen one, but in the stories we hear about boons. So he gave her 2 boons. One was that she said, "Well, I will ask for them later." So he said, "All right," and he kept that promise to her. So Rama was the eldest. Baby appeared first, whose mother is Kaushalya. Bharat is the son of the second and favorite wife, Queen Kaikeyi. We shall see whether she remains the favorite after the next incident. And the twins are the son of Sumitra, Lakshman, and Shatrughna. So in the early on, Vishwamitra comes, and although the king has now he has sons, not only one son to carry on the dynasty, not only 2, but he's got 4 sons. And the greatest intention that Dasharath Maharaj has is to keep his sons protected. And then one day Vishwamitra comes and he says, "I need your sons." He says, "But they're only 16. Look, the skin is very soft, the feet are very soft. What do you want with them?" He said, "Well, I'll train them to defeat Rakshasas who are spoiling the sacrifices in the forest." And Dasharath says, "No, you can't." He says, "You can't." He says, "I'm your guru." He says, "All right, you can." He says, and he takes them, and of course they're very successful, and they learn the art of weaponry. And during that time, after having learned the art of weaponry, Ram uses it in the best possible way by visiting the kingdom of King Janaka and winning Sita Devi, who's having a Swayamvara. Again, very powerful young lady. She's allowed to choose her own husband. There's no managers involved in choosing the husband for this girl. Your father says, Janaka says, you can marry whoever you like. It's your choice. Oh, this was in Treta Yuga, folks. This is the Sanatana Dharma principle. Women can choose whoever they like. But, just a small catch, they have to demonstrate how heroic they are. And you demonstrate what sort of hero you are by archery, sword fighting, wrestling, swimming, running. In other words, if a Kshatriya girl is going to marry a Kshatriya boy, he better be a Kshatriya, not a flake. No one will go to a Kshatriya girl and say, he's a very nice Prabhuji, he does IT, he's very, very good with a keyboard. I mean, you should see him. You should see him work the keyboard. He's very, very fast. Okay? The girl will just go, talk to the hand, Father. So Ram, how did he demonstrate his eligibility? Well, he picked up a bow that was so heavy that none of the other warriors could lift it even. And he not only strung the bow, but he snapped it in half, just as an elephant breaks a stick of sugarcane. And there was a great thunderous roar as this bow cracked. Birds flew from the trees. Thunder rolled in the sky. Because this bow it was called Haradhanu. It was the bow of Lord Shiva. So it's a huge bow. And after that, Sita, of course, she had her flower garland ready, and she came and she garlanded him. And of course, it really helped that there was 3 other eligible girls at the time. So the boys all got married. So Lakshman marries Urmila, okay, the daughter of Janaka. Okay, apart from Sita, I've got a sister. Would you like to marry the sister? Bharata marries, not you, someone on this side. Bharat marries, okay, Mandavi, very nice, the daughter of Janaka's brother. And Shatrughna marries, this one will make you laugh, how Prabhupada could name his disciple this name. Huh? Shrutakirti, yeah. Shrutakirti. Shrutakirti was the daughter of Janaka's brother. So the boys come home and Dasharath is deciding, are we okay so far? Just let me know, just go like this. Just go like this. And dribble. I'll get the message. So it's time to, it is time to pass on the throne. It is, as everyone sees with our glorious late Queen, Elizabeth II, it's difficult to pass on the throne, isn't it? Difficult to pass it on until the time of death sometimes. But she made a vow, she kept her vow. And now we see the intrigue beginning, don't we? There was an heir and a spare. Someone who was destined to be king and someone who was not. And the rivalry that set off, just see, the whole world is talking about that rivalry. So when it came time for Lord Ram to be crowned king, the night before, Kaikeyi went and she was brushing her hair. At least that's what it does in the movie. She's brushing her hair. Who came to her? Manthara, her chambermaid, came to her and said, whispered in her ear. She seduced her through the ear. She said, actually, it's your son. Your son is much better than Ram. Your son is the best. Your son should be king. And eventually, it didn't take much persuasion, but she was convinced that her son should be king. And Manthara said, but Kaikeyi said, well, how is that possible? He's already chosen Ram. The mantra reminded her, do you remember those 2 boons that he offered you? Now is the time to go and ask. So she asked Dasharat, and he said, whatever, I gave my promise. And a Kshatriya is not like an ordinary man. If he gave his promise, it's like now these, whether it's the First Minister of Scotland, whether it's the Prime Minister of England, they're being asked questions about something that happened. Did you have a party? Did you have a party at 10 Downing Street? I can't remember. Did you do something wrong with the Scottish National Party? I can't quite remember. I don't recall. So Dasharath could have said, it's a long, long time ago. 2 boons, you're speaking in riddles, I can't remember. But his honor was that I will keep this promise. I will keep this promise. Even if it hurts me, I'll keep this promise. Therefore, when Prabhupada, he once talked to his disciples about their initiation vows, when he found that some of them weren't chanting their rounds, and Prabhupada just looked aghast, he said, but you promised. You promised. You made a vow, as if to say, is there anything more that I need to say? You promised before the sacred fire, before the Guru, before your Vaishnava Sangha. You promised. As if to say, there's nothing that you signed. There doesn't have to be a photograph of your initiation to prove that you got it. You don't have to remind yourself annually. You promised. And so he says, I promised. And I remember very clearly that day when I promised, what is it that you want? So she says, I want Ram to not be crowned king, but I want Bharat to be crowned king. The king was, He said, and the second? He said, I want Ram to be exiled to the forest. Now, why did she ask for that? Because she was worried that when her son was on the throne, Ram, because of his popularity, would attract an army that could then, in a battle, overthrow Bharat. So she wanted to strip him not only of his rights as the crown prince, but he also wanted to strip him of any possibility that he could compete with her son. Now 14 years, why 14 years? Because in the Vedic culture, 14 years is a life sentence. That's what you get for murder. It's 14 years. Sometimes in this part of the world we have a 25-year sentence for murder, but you serve less than that. 14 years is for murder. And so you'd be exiled, and that's it. And exiled pretty much was capital punishment. Pretty much. They didn't say it, but pretty much. How are you going to survive 14 years in the jungle? You're just a snack for a tiger. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. I was in Andhra Pradesh, traveling with Shivaram Swami in a taxi, coming back at midnight from we'd been on walking on this padayatra. And I saw a dog crossing the road. It was a dog or a fox or something like that. I said to Maharaj, look, it's a big fox, big dog. And the windows were open, and I was going to, as a British man, we reach out the window and we pat the dog, don't we? And it was only when I got up close and it went, Rrr! And I saw there was some stripes on the back of the dog. It's a bloomin' tiger. So they're everywhere. So how are you going to survive 14 years in the jungle with tigers? And so therefore, it's not only exile for 14 years, but it's pretty much capital punishment as well. So then Sita says, well, I'm your wife, I'm like your... And then there's a beautiful poetry by Sita as she addresses Ram, and she argues with Ram. Very submissive wife, but she argues with him because he keeps saying, you can't come with me to the forest, it's too dangerous. And she keeps giving a reply, and she tricks him. And he says, but your thorns are going to hurt your feet. She says, well, I go everywhere with you. why should I not go with you now? Why should I not go through the difficulties that you go through? Are the thorns not going to hurt your feet as well? So let me enjoy. And at one point she says, but he says, but there are tigers. She says, no tiger would be interested in me. Look at me, I'm just a girl. So there's this whole long dialogue between Ram and Sita. And eventually he says, all right, you can come. And then Lakshman says, but you'll need me to help you, Lord Ram. So Ram says, and then all the citizens of Ayodhya, they come. Well, you need us. Thousands and thousands and thousands of them came and said, but you need us because what are you going to eat? I'm the baker. I'm the pot maker. I'm the barber. I'm this, I'm that. You'll need us. You'll need all of us. So the whole city emptied out. And then eventually Ram said at the gates of the city, he said, look, I really appreciate this, but, exile means exile. I have to go by myself. And of course, Bharat was away at the time, and when he came back, and he found out what his mother had done. Well, the interesting thing is that while he was on his way back, Dasharath was just soaking the pillow of his bed with his tears, and Kaikeyi was lying next to him. And he said, how is it that such great misfortune has come to me just after such great fortune? And it is said in India that it is like the misfortune and fortune come like the mango and the palasha fruit. When you see a palasha flower, it's very beautiful. When you taste the palasha fruit, it's when you see the mango flower, it is very inconsequential. When you taste the mango fruit, it is a delight. So in life, sometimes one thing will happen and you'll think, that's it, my fortune has changed. And immediately, in the middle of your happiness, it's taken away from you. And one who lives a life where he or she tries to live in equilibrium will take these and just understand this too shall pass. It's happening. It's temporary. It is happening. It's real, but it will pass. And I will survive. So Dasharath was wondering, he said, I was on the receiving end of such good fortune. What has happened? And then he remembered that one time he was hunting in the forest and he saw a deer and he shot an arrow and he heard a human voice say, ah! And he ran over and it was a young boy, Shravan Kumar, who is famous in Indian history for looking after his blind parents. And with his dying words, Shravan Kumar said, you look after my parents, they're blind, they only have me, take them some water. And with that he died. So Maharaj Dasharath made the arrangements, but the parents, on hearing what he had done, they said, thank you, but we curse you. We curse you. As pious as we are, as religious as we are, we now curse you that at some point in your life, you will also know the pain that we are going through to lose your son. So this curse came at the same time. So Ram went to the forest. 14 years they meet great sages, and Prabhupada makes a point, of course, in that verse that Lord Ram gave up everything. He didn't fight. He didn't say, you really think that Bharat is as good as me? You really think that I can't do a good job? Put me in the wrestling ring with him. Test me. So although he was a Kshatriya, his renunciation was supreme. He gave up everything. Why? To honor his father. And therefore we see that the Ramayana is so loved because it teaches a son how to be the perfect son to his father. Even though what his father said was, there was a poor reason behind it, to keep an ill-motivated co-wife happy. Even that, once the father has spoken, the son obeys. And therefore Dharma is preserved. Because that son, when he grows up, and he's also a father, he also has to instill the same level of respect within his son. So, you know all the different things that have taken place in the forest. There was Rakshasas, there was demons that were killed that were actually devotees, demons that were killed that were actually gods that had been placed under a curse, great sages that the Lord spoke to. And really, the 24,000 verses of the Ramayana, most of it deal with just 14 years, not the 11,000 years of Ram's reign that came afterwards. So in there we find so much instruction. And that's why the Ramayana is so loved. Just before Ram fully enters the forest, Bharat gets back. And Bharata comes to Ram and he catches up with him and he said, "My lord, how can you do this? I don't want the kingdom. It's my mother that wanted the kingdom for me, but I don't want the kingdom. Please come home. I don't want it. I won't take it. In your absence, how can I have it?" And so Ram says, "No, I must do what our father asked." And then Bharat says, "Well, at least give me your sandals." And these sandals are said to be the person's tadiya, the personal property of the person. And a lot of your personality is in the sandals. And so Bharat lives outside the city for 14 years and he worships Lord Ram's padukas, or sandals. And poets for many, many years have written songs about the sandals of Ram. Vedanta Deshika, he wrote 1,000 verses just about Ram's sandals. Just about Ram's sandals. Can you imagine? 1,000 verses about a pair of shoes. My dear Lord, just as your feet are elevated upon those sandals, please can those sandals also elevate me. And he goes, the beautiful feet of Lord Rama on these sandals. Just beautiful. Anyway, so Bharat, he lives there in a little hut and he wears deer skin and he just drinks, he just eats barley which has been soaked in cow urine. His hair grows matted locks and he's just there for 14 years waiting for the time when Ram would come. Our favorite story, of course, that always comes in Bhaktivedanta Manor players' theatrics upon Ramayana is Saurpanaka, or Sopanak, as we pronounce. Because Sopanak was Ravan's sister. And she's particularly of note because she really loves Ram, or she's really attracted to him. She's a Rakshasi, so is she attracted to him because he can be her husband, or is she attracted to him because she can eat him? It's kind of both. Some relationships are like that. You know, Mr. and Mrs. Praying Mantis. Are you attracted for sexual gratification or for food? Well, she says, both. So Sarpanak comes and at first she says that, Lord Ram, you're the perfection of my vision. Please come away with me. Let us live in the forest. This, Ram says, I'm married. This is my wife, Sita. And she says, Sita, she's not beautiful. She's not beautiful at all. Because by this time, Sopranak has changed from a Rakshasi Deha to a beautiful Sundara Rupa. And she comes, she says, marry me. I'm much more beautiful. And he says, well, I'm married. And besides which, I've made a vow at the time of my marriage. And gentlemen, This is a good vow to take. It's called the Eka Patni Vrat. Eka Patni Vrat means I will only marry one woman. Only marry one woman. It's popular in Christian cultures. In other Eastern cultures, not so popular. But Ram did it, displaying again his renunciation. My father may have 3 wives. I will have one, Sita. So then Sopranak turns to Lakshman and says, well, will you marry me? And Lakshman says, I'm celibate. Besides, I'm just looking after my brother. We're here in the forest and I have to look after him. She says, it is this wretch, Sita, that is between me and all of you. I will eat her. So she comes to eat her. And of course, Ram, at that point, utters the immortal words. He says, do not kill her. Just lop off her nose. Which is a kind of, it's like killing, isn't it? So she runs screaming into the forest. She finds her brothers, Kar and Dushana. Kar and Dushana come back with an army of ogres, 14,000 ogres, and they do battle. And of course, Ram and Lakshman vanquish all of them. So then she runs back to Ravana, and she tells Ravana, and at this time we encounter Ravana in this part of the story. Ravana is a great devotee of who? Lord Shiva, that's right. Now Lord Shiva is known as Ashutosh. Ashutosh means he gives boons very quickly, but he also gets angry very quickly. But if one pleases Lord Shiva, he gives the most incredible boons. But sometimes we find in these accounts that the boons which Lord Shiva gives there's like a dual-edged sword. I'll give you this sword, but you might cut yourself with it. Be very careful. So Ravana was very, very powerful, but very lusty at the same time. He had not prayed to Lord Shiva for vairagya. So Shopanak, she went to him crying, my brother, please avenge me. Look what they've done to me. He's ill-motivated. And then she says to him, but Sita is the most charming lady I have ever seen, and she's a fit wife for you. So you should go there and steal her. So you know the very famous story with Maricha turns himself into a golden deer. And if you look closely at Srila Prabhupada's Vyasasan this morning, you'll have seen that Prabhupada is sitting in the Dandaka forest. There's lots of foliage. And on either side is the golden deers. This is a turning point in the story now, folks. This is where we go from one kanda to another kanda. Because Sita looks at the deer and she says, Ram, please catch him for me. It wasn't too long before, was it 12 years, 13 years had passed by? There's a lot of time had passed by. They're ready to go back to the palace. And she wants to take this deer back to the palace because his hooves were rainbow colored. His skin was like burnished, shiny gold. His horns were like silver. Ram, please catch him for me. So Ram goes off, and of course, he catches the deer, but the deer lets out Ram's voice. Sita, help me. Lakshman, help me. So Sita turns to Lakshman and said, do you hear your brother? Hear your brother, go and help him. And Lakshman stays there because he thinks that he stays there because he doesn't want to leave Sita on her own in a dangerous forest. And then a very strange quirk in the story where Sita actually accuses Lakshman, whose only vision has been at Sita's feet. He doesn't even look at Sita in the face because he's on a be a monk challenge. In this case, not a week, but 14 years. So he's looked at Sita. He didn't even look at her face, but he always looked at her feet. And he says, my lady, he says, don't, your words pierce my heart like arrows. I will go and find Ram and help him. Because she's accusing him that you're waiting until Ram dies so that you can have me as your wife. He said, oh, he's saying such harsh things. So he runs off. And of course, in the interim, Ravan comes dressed as a Swami, dressed as a perfect disguise. If you want to do evil things, dress yourself like a holy man. This crops up in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it crops up in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it crops up in the Ramayana, because that is the identity which is most trusted. So he comes, and eventually Sita is captured, and she's taken away to the south, to Lanka, in an aerial chariot pulled by donkeys. And he flies. Just the imagery. And so Ram and Lakshman search for an entire year. And there's intrigues with Sugriva and Vali. They meet Hanuman, who guides them. And eventually they come to the beach. And then there's wonderful scenes as we have, Sampati, and we find Ram is quelling the ocean. We find that a beautiful bridge is built between India and you must understand that Ayodhya is way up in the north, and this with Supranak is said to have taken place in Nasik, which is near Bombay, and then Lord Ram's ayana, or journey, comes all the way down to the bottom of India. And so it's a long distance they covered, but here as we're coming into the eventual denouement. So Hanuman flies over and he discovers where Sita is lying in the Ashok Grove. There's a wonderful time when they set fire to his tail and he burns the city. He comes back and tells Ram, let's build this bridge. I've been given a benediction. The stones go in the water, and Lord Ram is on his way to victory. Victory to Ram. Let's hear it. Jai Jai Ram. Wonderful. I want to pick up the story. One of my favorite poets, Vedanta Deshika, he has written you could say a sonnet. It's a non-rhyming poem in Sanskrit, just translated just the other day by Gopinath Acharya of our Oxford Centre for Hindu Studies. And I just was going to, and sent to me by Prema, and I was just going to read this to you. Would you like to hear something? Largely unconvincing, but I'll go with it. There are many details. If I was a really good storyteller, I'd be throwing my arms around and dramatizing the whole story, but I'm not, so. Let's just encourage Lord Ram. And I must say that at this point in the story, there was a great king called Kulashekar. Have you heard of him? You've heard of the band. Well, this is the story. This was the king that they were named after. So Kulashekar, he was a king who used to fall into ecstasy when he was hearing the Ramayana. So much so that he would call his army. He would stand up on his throne as the Brahmins were reciting to him, and he would say, "My dear friends, have you all heard? Have you all heard?" He said, "Sita has been captured by Ravana. Could you all please now stand up? We can all stand up. I want to just dramatize this for me. My dear friends, have you heard the news? Sita has been captured by Ravana. Let us immediately go there. Get your swords. Get your shields. Your bows and arrows. Come with me to Lanka." Okay, thank you. So after a while, the Brahmanas, they were very, very cautious. They're very cautious. And one time, of course, he went all the way to Lanka with his army, and the ministers had to get the army to come round behind him or in front of him and say, to come back and say, "My lord, it's Shanti, Shanti, you're all right. Sita has been reunited with Ram. They've gone back to Ayodhya." And Kulashekar went, "Thank God for that. God be praised. Lord Ram is wonderful." But on this occasion, a young Brahmin boy came and he was reciting, and he didn't know this about Kulashekar. So he got to the bit where Sita had been captured. Again, Kulashekar stood up and he said, "Have you heard? Have you heard the news? Sita's been captured. Quick, let's go." And he got all the way to Lanka, and this time nothing could pull him back. And he got into the water because he was riding his horse into the water. And eventually they managed to persuade him and drag him back. But anyway, let's have a few names of Ram to encourage Ram and give support. Prabhupada said one time, he said, just like Lord Ramachandra, he said he found monkeys and bears. He said, to rescue Lakshmi from the hands of Ravana. He said, so similarly, as Ram's representative, I've come to your countries, he said, to collect some monkeys and bears. He said, and together we will go and rescue Lakshmi from the hands of Ravana. So let's chant as we're going across this bridge to Lanka. Dasharati, Ramachandra, Raghava, Raghupati, Janaki Ballabha, Raghunandan, Ramabhadra, Rajiva Lochana, Kaushalaya. Thank you. If that doesn't put fear in Ravan's heart, I don't know what will. So, what's the time? 10 to, okay. We've got a few minutes left. Okay. Just before this happens, I must go, well, no, we're on the way now. But Ravana's brother comes just before they're about to set on the bridge. Ravana's brother, whose name is? Vibhishan. And Vibhishan wants no part in his brother's malpractice. He wants to surrender to Ram. He says, look, I want to surrender. But he hits the monkeys first. He hits Hanuman and the monkeys. And he says, I want to surrender. And the monkeys said, but you're Ravana's brother. You know, this is obviously a trick. And the monkeys, there's a long list of disqualifications that Vibhishan has. And they don't think that he's qualified to surrender or give his life to Ram. Ramanujacharya, when he was telling this story thousands and thousands and thousands of years later, he was reciting the disqualifications of Vibhishan to his audience. And he hadn't got to the bit where Lord Ram accepts him. So one person in the audience stood up and he said, you know what, I have these same disqualifications. I can never surrender. I realize that in this lifetime, I'll never be qualified to get Ram's darshan. And he begins to walk out. And Ramanujacharya says, where are you going? Where are you going? He says, well, I heard you were reciting the disqualifications of Vibhishan. That's me down to a T. I have those same disqualifications. I'm never going to make it in this lifetime. And Ramanujacharya says, no, sit down. He says, I'll make up the rest. I'll personally tell Ram how good you are. And they tell the story to highlight the importance of the guru who will intervene on our behalf and speak. So Vibhishan, eventually he comes and he begs forgiveness from Ram, and he gives him some secrets. And then the battle begins. The battle is a wonderful battle. That's a class in itself. But I just want to read part of Vedanta Deshika's poetry, because this is it's wonderful. Vedanta Deshika, he was born in 1268, and he lived for 101 years. And let's see if you can join me in these verses, please. Glory to the Son of the supreme sky, splendorous with the divine Sita, whose rising ruins the darkness and fear of those who seek his shelter. Beautiful prayer. Here comes the battle. Thank you for your indulgence, by the way. Very kind of you. Right. Glories to Ram, who gave an embrace, considering it the totality of all your possessions, to the chief monkey, the swift son of the wind, who spread a fire throughout the enemy's city, bounded by the moat of the boundless sea. Glory to Ram, whose undisputed sovereignty became evident in his ardent desire for a firm consensus among his dissentient council and accepting the enemy demon's brother. So he's glorified for accepting Vibhishan, because there's hope for us. There's hope for us. Glory to Ram, who are committed to safeguard those who even once seek your shelter. Glories to Ram, O hero, whose vow is never broken. Glories to Ram, who adorned the ocean's shore by lying upon it. Glory to Ram, who evaporated the bottomless sea with the flaming tips of your arrows, fierce like the flames at the end of the world. Glory to Ram, who parted the ocean with a causeway constructed from myriad mountains, held and hoisted by the hands of the thrilled Simeon troops, eager to fight a formidable foe. You're doing very well. Glory to Ram, the twang of whose bowstring was like a teacher, teaching the art of terrified dancing. Terrified dancing. To Lanka's queens, confined by regiments of rushing monkeys. Glory to Ram, whose mortal wounds, caused by poison-tipped arrows, was whisked away by a waft of wind from the wings of your beloved Veda-formed Garuda, massive like a golden mountain, moving in the sky. Glory to Ram, the scornful fury of whose anger could kick down the door like chests of countless Rakshasa commanders who closed their eyes in confusion when they beheld never before seen battalions of wild forest beasts. It's great, isn't it? Glory to Ram, whose prowess is particularly praised for granting a moment's respite to Ravana, shaken when his helmet, shattered by the broad shaft, shot by your brutal bow, which quivered as its tips twang, caustically rang. Whose unfailing feathered arrow became a bolt of thunder, cleaving the mighty Kumbhakarna mountain. Whose duel with the Rakshasa was witnessed by your younger brother, slayer of Indrajit, stirred to anger by the deafening roar of the waves of a shoreless sea, of unruly monkeys, ruining his servants' diabolical sacrificial rites. Glory to Ram, whose prowess is without peer, the roar of whose horrid weapons is greater than those of Triambaka, whose valiance even your mortified enemy conceded when his charioteer seized his chariot. And finally, well, thank you. The path of whose chariot was perfumed by the flower clusters falling from celestial trees in heaven, lit by the tremulous luster of Indra's numerous lotus eyes, evermore aghast when Ravana's 10 heads, severed by your sharp arrows, re-emerged. Glory to Ram, who is praised by the greatest sages, whose mouths overflow with the loftiest Vedic verses, matched by the wails of the young night rovers' wives, as Ravana's wives, sunk in sorrow when the heads of the 10-headed Ravana were severed by the power of boons and by powerful arms unsurpassed in the whole wide world. Beautiful. Glory to Ram, a mere atom of a drop of the ocean of whose might can be told to all of you today. A mere drop can be contemplated by Brahma, whose insight knows no bounds. Glory to Ram. Glory to Ram. Glory to Ram. Jai Shri Ram. Jai Shri Ram. Jai Shri Ramachandra Bhagavan ki jai. There is a beautiful play, just like we've had a play today. There's a beautiful play that goes on in a town in northern India. And the play only has 2 actors. A young boy who plays Ram and a young boy who plays Bharat. And there's only one prop, and that is Ram's paduka, Ram's shoes. And 1 million people turn out to watch this play. The play has no lines, no script. There's only one action. A long street in the town is decorated, and at one end of the town is Ram. The other end of the town, way down the street, is Bharat. And the entire play consists of Ram, Bharat, walking together. And as they come a mile or so, getting closer, the whole town erupts in a blaze of festivities as Ram is united with Bharat, who has been waiting for him for 14 years. And together they go into a glorious procession into Ayodhya. And every one of his friends comes to meet him, and everybody's surrounding him with his long forest locks. Sita is there, Hanuman is there. And as they're moving along in the real world, Ayodhya gets ready to celebrate. And as we see that vision in front of our eyes, we see Hanuman walking, Lakshman walking, Bharata walking along. And they're each carrying something of service to Ram. We just read, and then we shall finish. Close your eyes and meditate that Ram is coming back to Ayodhya. They enter Ayodhya with Bharat carrying the sandals. Vibhishan and Sugriva holding the chamara and the fan. Hanuman holding the umbrella. Shatrughna, a quiver of arrows. Sita, a pot of holy water. Jambavan, carrying a shield. Ramraja has begun. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Ramachandra Bhagavan ki jai. Oh, thank you. Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Kripamoy Prabhu, for the class. We have Abhishek now, so if all the Brahman initiated devotees who are also clean, wearing Vaishnav clothing, if you'd like to do Abhishek, then we can begin a queue over this side of the Haveli, and His Grace Gunagrahi Prabhu is going to lead us through a kirtan, so please do join in, and Jai Ram, Jai Bajrangbali, Hari Ram.
Jai Ram, Jai Ram.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namaste Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Jaya Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Lakshman Hanuman. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Lakshman, Hanuman. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Lakshman, Hanuman. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram. Hey, Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Lakshman, Hanuman. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram. Jaya Sitaram, 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 Lakshman, Hanuman. Jai Sitaram, Lakshman, Hanuman ki. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hey, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hey, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hey. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram. Hey Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram. Jaya Sitaram, Lakshman Hanuman, Sitaram, Lakshman Hanuman. Hey Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Lakshman Hanuman. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
I'll make a quick announcement, then you can sing it.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everybody. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everybody. So, thank you for coming to the festival. The plan for the rest of the day, so we have Harinam now. So, Harinam and book distribution in Watford if you want to go. So, that's at 11 o'clock now. So, you can head over to Cafe Nero where we're meeting. So, if you'd like to go on Harinam, that's the place to go. 1:30 p.m. is the feast. And then